I will go ahead and open the special meeting of the Sequoia Union High School District by calling the meeting to order. The trustees noted that we don't have approval. Start with roll call.
Trustee Thompson, Trustee Stevenson, Trustee Sarver,
Here.
Vice President Ginn,
Here.
President Dubois.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you so much for that. One of our trustees noted that we didn't have a spot for approval of the agenda. Is it okay for me to ask my colleagues if they do approve of this agenda?
Well, I want to, for consideration, remove item 4.1 from the agenda. I don't know if my colleagues want to discuss item 4.1, but I'd prefer to pull it.
I would like to discuss it. Okay.
So what's the reason for removal from the agenda?
Well, I'd rather not pass it or talk about it.
I thought we had to have this on the agenda so that one of our colleagues can practice being here, considering that they're sick and there's surge in our community, and we want to protect our community from getting sick. I know someone came to our meeting last week who was sick, and we all got an exposure notice. So this is unusual as time of our year. And so I would love to see us pass this so that he can participate.
Okay, sounds like we have moved to the discussion part. So we will allow some time for discussion.
Okay. Then I move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Dr. Williams, did you want to introduce this item, or do you want me to do it? You want me to do it? Okay. So this special meeting was called because we do have a trustee who is showing some symptoms, so he can't be in the room with us tonight.
We should ask for any public comment.
Thank you for that reminder. We do have some guests watching. Is there any public comment for something not on this special meeting agenda? I'm not saying anything.
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then I will call for public comment again once we introduce this item. So one of our colleagues is showing some symptoms, and our superintendent consulted with legal counsel and was told that we would need to pass this resolution in order to have our colleague participate in closed session. For open session, the public would need to be notified of where Trustee Thompson is, and the public would have a right to be in the same room as Trustee Thompson. So that is why we are here. That's why the special meeting was called. So I will open it up for discussion or questions.
My understanding from talking with him is that there's an alternate solution that's been found to this resolution. And I think that I'm uncomfortable with some of the wording in the resolution and don't support it. And there's an alternate solution to the original reason why I believe it was put forward.
I know I got clarification as to why this was done and looking at the law and the regulation. I know that we need to make a notice when this happens. And I think that to allow all participants to be here, given the surge, given the issues, given the exposure that we had last week to someone who wanted to be at the meeting and did not choose to do Zoom because they needed to be in the room. I'm having very much a concern to creating red tape to allow people not to participate.
So it only applies to the 5 of us. Other people are free to join in as participants.
He's not a free participant. He is a board of trustee.
I don't believe is it a violation of the Brown Act for a student trustee to attend by Zoom?
I don't know if we are discussing the Brown Act violation. I don't want to speak to that. We would
I'm
consult.
talking about the regulation that's on here.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
speaking to trustee again. And then also, I just want to be mindful of disclosing personal health situations of all members of our board.
Yeah. So for me, this protects us and it honors him. And even though it is an extra step that may feel uncomfortable, it is a different time. It is a different time. And so when we decide to have our meetings in person, which I totally agree, if we have our kids are in person, they need to be there. But we have to continue to do the business of kids. And this allows us to do that without disrupting the work that our cabinet and that our staff and teachers need to do. And we have things on the agenda that we need to discuss. And this addresses that in a way that meets regulation and law or whatever it is, and Brown Act law and all that kind of stuff, and allows us to get on and do the business of kids.
My understanding is it could be just like this and every other person that wants to attend could be on Zoom without this resolution.
I'm not talking about everyone else. I'm talking about our board of trustee.
You're talking about the 5 of us.
The board of trustee. I'm not talking about the community members. They always have a choice on how they show up, but the board of trustee don't always. And so I want to support having our board of trustee who wants to be here, but can't be here because we are in a highly transferable COVID situation, whether or not it's serious or not, it's not the question, but we put people's health at risk, and he's trying to adhere to that and honor our safety. And so I would like to honor him by him being here and doing it the legal way for him to participate. And I would hope that someone would do that for me.
Did you communicate with him today?
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Did you say something?
I'm just wondering if you have information that I don't have.
I don't have any information. We have this so he can participate, right? That's my understanding. That's not anything that was hidden, right?
So I understand, Rich, from the input you're providing, that another completely legal, compatible way for him to participate has been implemented.
That's my understanding. Did you receive a text from Chris today?
I received a text and it was not understood that that was a legal way for trustee to participate. And also, according to our guidelines in our district, if in fact you're exhibiting symptoms, and we want to make sure that we're modeling that we do not come in the vicinity of where we're holding a meeting or holding school. So in honor of that, one, I recommended that he stay home and take care of himself because he is ill.
But this would allow him to participate because he's not so sick where he cannot give his input and direction as part of the trustee board.
Correct.
For example, I think I saw at many other meetings and city council meetings before the surge, they use this option to allow people to participate. I think this is a little different because the surge is here. So it's like, you want to be careful about not doing policy and procedure and laws so that we don't get caught up later or get caught off guard or have a whistleblower who will come back to us saying we didn't have a proper public meeting.
So a question I have, for the superintendent. So if we pass this resolution, we only have to do it once. And then if another board member is out ill, this only covers closed session, but another board
No,
member.
if we pass this resolution, it covers us for 30 days. We would have to renew it every 30 days. And it would cover participation in closed and open session via teleconferencing or via Zoom.
So it's closed session as well as open
Yes.
session.
Yes.
So
So the word in this is, I mean, the sentence that I have issue with is where it says that meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees, and that the current emergency continues to directly impact the ability of board members to meet safely in person. And I don't believe that that's true.
And I would disagree because let's all come to here sick. How would we feel right now? Knowing someone is sick. Would you say, come over to my house and come hang out with me? We would say, no, please stay at home. This is a highly contagious area. We are not in necessarily COVID 2 years ago where people were dying, but it is like the flu, is highly transferable, and people are getting sick still. And I'm coming off of just feeling personally impacted by this because I just lost a cousin. I just lost someone's grandmother who was like my grandmother. So to say imminent danger, I think that, yes, we're not where we were 2 years ago, Rich, but I don't think we're out of the woods completely. We're on that tail end. And why wouldn't I want to protect Laura? Why wouldn't I want to protect our technicians and the rest of everyone else, in addition to our board member? Why wouldn't I want to do that? And if that's the language that allows us to do it, because that's the legal language, I can't change legal language, but that allows us to do that and be protected. And for our colleagues to participate Zoom or in person on an emergency basis.
Okay. So another question, follow up on my last question. So it needs to be renewed every 30 days. So would it be on consent in the future? Or would we have to have another? We could put a resolution on consent.
Yes, we could put it on consent. Yes.
And I wasn't clear that this would allow for somebody to also participate in open session, but a notice would still have to be put on the door. Like if somebody was at a hotel room.
And Carrie and President Dubois, just as the guidance that we received from council, that is what we're following. So we both received that information as well. Yes.
So I would try, I mean, as I read the resolution, my reaction was exactly the same as Trustee Gins, that I recognize that the objective is to be able to do whatever we need to do legally to allow one of our trustees to participate remotely while being under the weather. But the way the language here reads, to me, it seems to be a declaration that because our board meeting is an unsafe environment, the board is exercising the legal opportunity to meet remotely instead of meeting in person. I was under the impression on first receiving this that we were declaring that we were going to remote meetings entirely. And it struck me as being a rather large overkill kind of a statement to be making to make it easier for one of our board members to participate. In the 12 years I've been on the board, I've participated once remotely and did go ahead and post where I was. And I was I was in a private house in Pennsylvania, and our board meeting was posted on the door of that house while I was there. If it is clear that this is a formality that enables one board member to participate remotely, I'm okay with going through that mechanism to do so. I certainly agree with Trustee Stevenson's assessment that we do not want to do anything to encourage people to attend while under any suspicion of being capable of transmitting the disease, nor do we want to exclude a board member from participating if there is a mechanism that allows that to happen. But I did feel, much as Rich has stated, uncomfortable with making a statement that it looks like, you know, that meeting in person would continue to present an imminent risk. The imminent risk is presented by the encouragement of somebody who suspects they are currently ill from participating. So again, if this is the quickest, simplest, most straightforward way of doing business as usual, but allowing a temporarily absent board member to continue participating, I'm supportive of that. If we are giving an indication fundamentally that this board should be meeting remotely, I am in no way in support of using a very large, blunt hammer for a delicate action.
To my understanding, and thank you, Trustee Sarver. This is the language the standard language, which is required in order to give us the flexibilities. And so we are not moving to a full remote meeting, but just if any member of the governance team needs to, for whatever reason, particularly in a surge, if they're not feeling well or if they're exhibiting symptoms, or if they test positive and they feel well enough to participate, this will allow the flexibility for them to join in via Zoom or to teleconference in.
Because this is not a
There is an
planned
alternate.
meeting, because there's other opportunities for a planned meeting. If you plan to be out of town, you actually can give notice and all of that. And I've seen that done at city councils and board meetings. And that, I think this is different. This is illness. And so you didn't know you were going to be ill.
Okay, well, I appreciate
You could
everybody.
just post 3 days, post at your house, just in case. We could just make that a practice during the surge, and then you'll have posted.
But that's not what happened this time, right? Because
So we just passed a separate resolution about kind of emergency needing help from outside agencies. To follow up with this, I think sends messages that I personally am not comfortable sending, but I'm just one vote, so I guess I'll stop there.
To the chair, I just want to time check. It's about 10 more minutes we have left.
so I don't think there is another way to, because I was checking around looking at the Brown Act or whatever, and how do we do meetings? Like, I only see the exception if you have a planned meeting somewhere else, but not for situations like this.
Okay. I appreciate everybody's comments. I appreciate the caution, right? And all of the feedback. I want to just make sure there isn't public comment, and then we'll come back to the board. So I'll take this opportunity to check in for public comment on this agenda item.
There are no public comments on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to be sure. Any other questions or comments from board members? No? All right. So I need a motion to pass this resolution.
I move to approve this resolution to allow our trustee to participate.
Okay. And is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
Okay. And then all in favor?
Aye.
I will go ahead and pass it. And one opposed. Okay, thank you. All right. The resolution passes, so we need a roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Okay. Trustee Thompson, Trustee Stevenson,
Yes.
Trustee Sarver,
Yes.
Vice President Ginn,
No.
President Dubois.
Yes.
Motion carried. Vote of 3-1.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. All right. So I will go ahead and close out this special meeting. Thank you. And should we go ahead and open for
That's all
closed
right.
as well? Oh, 3 o'clock.
Okay. So we have 8 minutes.
Okay, it is 3 o'clock, so I will open the public portion of our closed session meeting to see if there is any public comment, either in person or on Zoom.
There are no public comments in person or on Zoom.
All right. Seeing that there are no public comments, I will go ahead and close this meeting. Thank you. Okay, we are ready to start. Welcome everybody to our board meeting tonight. The board is reconvening from closed session. So just a welcome and explanation to the audience. I see that we do have several attendees in our Zoom audience. We appreciate you being at our meeting tonight, staff members and community members. And we also have people in our audience here. If you would like to make public comment, there are several opportunities to do that. We have an opportunity for comments for things that are not on the agenda. And if you're in the Zoom audience, you would just raise your Zoom hand and I will call on you. You will be timed. There are 3 minutes allowed for public comment, same rules for people who are in the audience. And with that, we will do a roll call.
Student Trustee Stead. Here. Student Trustee Osuna. Here. Trustee Thompson.
Here.
Trustee Stevenson.
Here.
Trustee Sarver.
Here.
Vice President Ginn.
Here.
President Dubois.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you for that. And next item is approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to give a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. There's nothing to report out from our closed session meeting. Next item is our consent agenda. That is where the board approves several items with just one motion to save time. For those of you who are new to our meeting, the consent agenda consists of contracts and a lot of housekeeping items. So is there a motion to approve our consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay,
Seeing that there's no public comment on it, then I'll go ahead and second.
okay, thank you for that. Okay, roll call.
Student Trustee Stead. Yes. Student Trustee Osuna. Yes. Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
Trustee Stevenson.
Yes.
Trustee Sarver,
Yes.
Vice President Ginn,
Yes.
President Dubois.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. We are now on item 8, special recognition.
This is the favorite part of today of the agenda is when we have the opportunity to recognize greatness and excellence within our district. And so this evening, we will recognize individuals who have gone above and beyond to provide service to our students and community at Carmont High School. Our interim principal, Sean Priest, will come before us and make the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Williams. Thank you, trustees. We have formal recognition for one group. I do want to just take an opportunity to shout out folks who have really been rolling with the punches to keep a school as rich as Carmont, rich despite difficult circumstances, the challenges of the last couple of years. Speaking specifically tonight about the Performing Arts Department, Brian Switzer, Jen Tepp, Jordan Webster, Nancy Martin, Jillian Yang, making sure that the show goes on, Jillian Yang, sorry, making sure the show goes on in spite of the myriad obstacles and limitations brought about by the pandemic. The creative pulse of Carmont High School is indeed a rhythm that swings, as I've seen over the last couple of weeks. I'd also like to just give a shout out to the Respect Policy team. This has been a collaboration between staff and students. They've modeled what it looks like when students and staff come together to collaborate to make manifest the values of a school community, enacting an inclusivity policy that speaks to the needs of having a welcoming and discrimination-free space for learning. So Julia Smith and Dan Deasy on the staff end, Siona Sherman, Noah Bronstein, Lexi Romanowski, and Miria Mayankar as students. Hats off to all of them, appreciate their efforts. But I do want to speak to a specific group tonight for special recognition. One of the first things that young teachers hear when they orient to their very first school is that it is the office staff who are the people who really run things. In the ups and downs of the pandemic, we have seen at Carmont the truth behind this maxim. Tonight, we raise our hats to Sharon Bologna, Heidi Bravo, Ann Egli, Terry Plack, Leonor Perez, Kat Ortiz, Sean Galagli, Sammy Ginger, and Heidi Flagg, who have held this school together. A year ago, when we were organizing support pods, this was a team that was tracking students, making phone calls to keep kids coming in on site, making them feel welcome, even during distance learning. When we moved to Zoomers and Roomers, the whole support staff team was at the school, greeting students as they entered, checking their frontline status. And this school year, as we reopened, they've been handing out masks, test kits, explaining COVID protocols, answering phone call after phone call after phone call, finding funds for additional expenses, calming nervous family and staff members, comforting sad families and staff members, de-escalating enraged families, organizing morale by boosting staff events and creating care packages for families in need, being sure that every class has credentialed coverage each day, and that innumerable other actions, large and small, that maintain our school's excellence and safety are completed. It's not always easy, and we know that their exhaustion is sometimes very real, but ultimately it is this front office team covering for each other and picking each other up and lifting us all up and keeping the school humming. And we're very, very grateful for all that they've done and continue to do for the Carmont community. So thank you, office team at Carmont.
Can I just say something? I mean, one of the things that I've learned as a trustee, it's often the office staff that really, they embrace some of our kids who have the most challenges. I'm not supposed to say at risk, but that's what I'm thinking of. Shani doesn't like me to say that, but some of our kids that really, really need help. And since I'm a parent at Carmont, I have really seen how they take care of kids. They mentor kids, they go out of their way. They have this program, you know, for some kids that just are just not fitting in at all at school. They take them in and give them jobs in the office, and they feel successful. And then I've seen them really turn around lives. So I'm so happy they're being recognized tonight. Thank you.
If I could add a couple of things. Sean, it's good to see you in a blue tie. The board hasn't had the opportunity to welcome you in your new role, and we are very pleased and excited at that. It is great to hear your voice representing Carlmont, and I'm thrilled with these changes that we've put together and how that's getting off to a great start. Much of this office staff, probably about half of these people, were in place when my older daughter entered Carlmont 20 years ago. And these people have served our family, and we've watched them closely, serving so many families over the years. And it is really great to be recognizing this group of people. These are dedicated folks who do a great job, and it's a good thing. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say I was impressed with their front office staff. We went over there for the tour, not the tour, but the welcome bus or whatever it was called. And your front line, your front office, they walk faster than I do. I was like having to like truckle behind them because they're so busy and so they know the kids, they know what to do. And I think for me, the fondest part of my heart about being a high schooler is that the front office staff has always been a place of navigation for me, helping me get into college, helping me with my first job, you know, helping my kids at their school. So I know that the front office is more like a welcome center than anything else. So thank you for acknowledging them.
And I want to say one more thing. I just know them too well. The other thing I want to say is they really enjoy working together. They like each other. And I think when you like each other and you know each other, you do even better work. They even travel together. So it's a model of how to work with your colleagues, right? Thank you.
I'd also like to read the certificate of recognition. The Sequoia Union High School District Board of Trustees proudly recognizes the Carlmont High School front office staff for your dedication, passion, and contributions at the front line to education excellence at Carlmont High School. January 19th, 2022, signed by President Carrie Dubois and your superintendent, Dr. Williams. And I will just add, every time that I visit, I am met with smiles, urgency, efficiency, and it gives the pulse for the community and also the pulse for the rest of the day. So thank you so much. Thank you, soon to be Dr. Priest. And this is great.
Thank you again. Okay, we are at item 9, and that's time for our student trustees to make comments.
I guess I'll go first. Oh, thank you. Hello, I hope everyone has had a restful and enjoyable winter break as you return to school as to be expected. COVID cases have, okay. Just gonna mute this mic. COVID cases have risen. I'd like to thank the district for their continued work with worksite labs, which has added more testing this past week. And I'd like to encourage all students to get tested and to wear their KN95 masks. I'd also like to thank the district for supplying students with KN95 masks and at-home tests. And I'd like to encourage them to continue this as more supplies become available. As one KN95 mask is not enough. I would also like to encourage the district to do whatever they can to make to work with teachers and form guidelines to support students who must quarantine due to COVID and form guidelines on how to make up work in a reasonable amount of time that doesn't overly add to student stress while also ensuring that the students receive the most that they can out of their education. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back. For those of you who don't know, last week I unfortunately tested positive for COVID, but thanks to the protocols we have in place in the district, I was able to be tested right as symptoms started. And through worksite labs, I did find out I had COVID. I have since completed my quarantine process and I am doing better than ever. But as an update to what Isabel and I are up to, with the support of SAC, we are planning on embarking very soon on a social media campaign, an informational social media campaign, where we can spread information of the district's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We find, and members of SAC have communicated, that unfortunately, some information falls on deaf ears when it comes to what the district is doing to combat the pandemic and to respond to the pandemic. Sometimes email is not the best form of communication to try to reach teenagers. So we will be trying to take a more relevant approach to spreading this information to our peers through social media, starting with, I think, Instagram. And we're waiting on certain approvals and green lights, but once we get those, we will hit the ground running. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, item 10, comments from the Sequoia District Teachers Association.
Hi. Thank you for the work you did earlier to continue allowing those of us to attend the meetings virtually. And I know that that's definitely appreciated. We have an update that we had our first bargaining session of 2022 last week, and we will be meeting again tomorrow, and we've made significant progress. We're hopeful that we'll come to a settlement soon. I want to echo what the student trustees said about the increased testing availability, and also I want to thank personally the superintendent for taking my late night texts when my members let me know that there are technical troubles with registering for appointments, and the work that she's done with worksite labs to make sure that those wrinkles get ironed out. I do want to say though, and I mentioned this at last week's meeting with the discussion of the resolution, that there are definitely mixed feelings among our membership and other staff about testing this week, being encouraged to test this week to get a baseline. There is an understanding of the importance of that, the importance of everyone to know their COVID status. And yet for people who are feeling fine and who have exhausted their sick leave, they are loath to be tested when they don't know what the district's plan is for leave should they have to go out. I've already been contacted by at least one member who exhausted her leave due to maternity earlier in the year and has had to quarantine due to positive test and doesn't know what is happening with her leave. So I would encourage the district and the board. The language of the resolution was contingent on the state not passing or not approving COVID leave. I would encourage the district and the board to please consider instating COVID leave now and making that communication to staff so that we know where we stand, and make it contingent the other way. That, you know, we can shift state money to that purpose if the state sees fit to grant it. San Mateo Foster City has recently granted their staff 10 days of COVID leave, specifically because of these concerns. We want everyone to be tested. We want everyone to be honest about their symptoms, but we also need our members to feel confident that they're going to be able to pay their rent and feed their families if they do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. And just to anticipate receiving something from Todd and myself tomorrow. And thank you. Rest assured, we are on top of this, and we really believe in the importance of preserving the sick time for the entire staff so that we feel comfortable testing isolating, and we want to make sure that you take care of your basic needs, and we want to be in support of that. So thank you for the reminder. We hear you.
Thank you. Okay, comments from the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Is anyone here? I think so. Okay. And now for public comment. And again, this is for items that are not on the agenda. And just a reminder, for items that are not on the agenda, the board is not able to respond. We do have one card here. Somebody in the audience, Brian Roberts.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Williams, who stepped out here momentarily, and fellow board members. I appreciate your service during this interesting times. And thanks for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Brian Roberts, and I come to you today as a parent of student athletes at Menlo-Atherton High School and as the co-president of the Menlo-Atherton Booster Club to ask for your support in addressing a significant deficiency in the offering to the student athletes of Menlo-Atherton High School. The student athlete population at Menlo-Atherton High School has grown significantly in the last 10 years with the influx of district students from redistricting. The student athlete population is expected to grow further as we welcome the student athletes from the Tide Academy soon. The primary athletic facility for the community that supports these student athletes has simply not kept up. The facility was built 60 years ago, is neither code compliant nor ADA compliant, does not effectively serve the size of the community from Menlo Park, Atherton, and East Palo Alto that gather to support and celebrate our student athletes. The academic and athletic leaders at Menlo-Atherton have challenged the student athletes of Menlo Park, Atherton, and East Palo Alto that attend our schools to grow as a whole person. Our student athletes have responded to that challenge with success not only on the fields, but in the classroom. The GPA for fall and winter athletes was over 3.4. We are proud of their significant growth and achievements. Now is the time for the district to step up and help us support these student athletes. One of our district supporters has begun the process for drawings of a stadium redesign and a student success center. This facility is intended to support the growth of our student athletes, both academically and athletically, as well as provide a safe, compliant facility for our community to gather and celebrate their achievements. We will follow with a specific ask and request your immediate support in moving this project forward. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for your public comment. And I do see one Zoom hand that is up. Abigail Corman.
Hi, thank you. My name's Abby Corman. I'm actually in my classroom still at Menlo-Atherton. My public comment is actually fortuitously related to the student trustee comment earlier. I'm just continuously impressed with our student trustees. I love the idea of a campaign on Instagram for students to know more about worksite labs and our COVID protocols, for example. And I would push and urge our board to continue that, to look into our media and communications strategy, follow the lead of our students, not just to help inform our students, but also many of our parents, as Trustee Stevenson has shared before, asking if certain messages have gone out on Facebook. I commend the district on our phone calls home. Those even I've received as staff, which I very much appreciate, especially when we find out like the number of COVID cases. And the reason I had thought to bring this up was I looked at the governance calendar, which I so appreciate being made public. Thank you for that. And I did notice, though, there's a row named community relations, and it's actually the only row that doesn't have anything scheduled at all year. And I'd push us to look into that, please, because it's something I've been trying to flag, especially with my students in my intensive class. I find once I make contact with parents, there's a lot they just don't know. They aren't connected to Canvas. They aren't connected to Infinite Campus. With grades not going home, being mailed home, there's a lot of not miscommunication, there's just a lack of communication. I feel we are restricting access, not just to students and parents, but there's a language you need to know to be able to access and find even where this Zoom link is to come to this board meeting. And I would just ask us to look at our media processes, our communications, and see if there's a way we can expand them on the tails of our student trustees. And really take advantage of social media and other methods so that we can really hear all of the voices and include all of our community, not just those who know how to play the game of school and use the language of education and academics. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Another, Carol Ann Coleman.
Unmute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, just making sure. Carol Ann Coleman, teacher at Sequoia High School. Just wanted to share a really great experience. Our school has just recently adopted a flex time, and 2 days a week, students have the opportunity to go to a space where they can get clarification on assignments, do weight training. And I've had the opportunity to create a space in addition to academic completion, a space for self-care. And to my surprise, students are actually signing up for it. And it's been really a pleasure to do and honor these students who find so much joy in just painting a rock, making sugar scrub, creating special self-care kits, writing a playlist of their favorite songs. So if they're ever in a space where they're stressed out, and maybe they don't have an opportunity to go somewhere, they can look into their own self-care kit and maybe find some strength in finding what gives them joy and lean into those difficulties that we are all so familiar with experiencing during this pandemic. So just wanted to share a quote. One of the students who's been coming every Thursday and Friday, she rated herself at out of a scale of 1 to 10, like a 2 on week 1. And then by week 3, she said, is it okay if I come here every week? Because I always feel better, even if I'm just painting a rock or even if I'm just talking to a friend while I paint. So just never undersell self-care. I can't say that enough, of how much joy it's given so many students. I've also opened this to staff, classified and certificated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol Ann, and thank you for sharing that story. Okay, I don't think there are any other public comments, so we will move on to item 14.1, the first reading and discussion of Board Policy 5111.1, District Residency and Administrative Regulation, Interdistrict Attendance Agreements.
Good evening. So through both of these processes, both the Board Policy 5111.1 for District Residency specifically, and the Administrative Regulation 5117 for the Interdistrict Attendance, what we are wanting to do is mirror the process where appeals are not only vetted by a single person, so in this case, Dr. Williams, but rather we can put a review panel together to look at appeals for residency and for interdistrict together. Both of these, the language around this in the administrative regulation and the board policy was modeled after the challenging of student records, which already runs that way, where if a student wants to appeal or to challenge a record, rather than it just be a decision by the superintendent can designate a review panel to go through the appeal and have the review panel make a final decision on it. And we wanted to match the language of this board policy and this administrative regulation to fit that model.
I have a question.
Yes.
In thinking about this policy, you know, we have a number of students who have fragile housing situations, you know, maybe living in vehicles, may be forced to move. And we used to have, I think, maybe this was unwritten, sort of the philosophy, especially for our kids that are most challenged, that we would keep them in our district if it's really not their fault that they can't stay housed very easily. So, so what does this, because I know we always just, you know, we really focus on the written word.
Right.
And I think that's something, and I also want to say, I think that our homeless count is not accurate, right? I think we have many more homeless kids than what shows up in the number that we see, because there's, Shanice is agreeing with me.
I was about to say, according to the definition of the McKinney Act, which is very different than a traditional homeless definition of individuals who are homeless. And the McKinney Act is much more broad. And I was actually thinking, I'm so glad you brought it up, Carrie, because I thought I was the only one, but just wondering about those kids, because what we have is people move anywhere between here and Mountain View and Fremont, but they don't really have a place to live. So they're couch surfing or they're renting a room out. Oh, that one went. So now I'm back in Redwood City. And so the constant is the district, because they're actually moving in this corridor because of housing cost, but housing availability.
Right. And then back to our equity issue, right? I mean, when we think about our kids that are most challenged, I mean, having them go from school district to school district just does not help them. So,
yeah. And I wanted to say something else. For some of our students, they are placed out of county under housing because they'll give them funding for up a year, but they're still considered under housing case management. And I know as a person working with a couple of families prior to coming here, that was one of the things I had to provide, is like a letter, like they're still getting case managed, they're actually technically still homeless. And they live in a different county because they can't find affordable place here. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And just to know that this recommendation does take into account students who are unhoused. Mm-hmm. And so that's a different regulation and a different policy. So this is in no way meant to displace our unhoused students. So
would it be possible when we bring this back that we see it with the other policy and take a look at?
Well, that is, but yeah, according to the law, they have different protections. And so we can present that protection.
Isn't that only the kids that are really classified as homeless, right? Like, what we're talking about is a broader subset of our students.
We are speaking of a broad subset, but we do have policies and protocols in place where we have to research. So when it gets to the appeal process, ideally we would have checked the status, we would have record of the student's address, where they live, or any personal challenges that they have. So this is only the point where we've done all of the fact checking, and then a decision has been rendered, and then the family wants to appeal. And so in most cases, if in fact you are deemed as unhoused, then you would not make it to the appeal process. You would just remain where you are, because we definitely echo, it is not the intent of this policy or any policy to displace or to create instability for students who need so much stability and they rely on the school for so many resources.
Thank you for that. Ellen?
Yeah, I mean, as I read it, the key to this presentation is that we are making sure that the appeals process is consistent across different policies. And we've talked several times in recent months of an effort to be aligning policy with practice and aligning practice with policy across the district. And so here I see that our standard approach and best practices are being clarified into an area where the policy was lacking in that, and we're now aligning. So I appreciate and applaud that, and I like the way it's been done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 15.1. Approval of the second amendment
to the
to
chair.
contract with Worksite.
President Dubois, just for clarification, will that be brought back for the second reading on consent?
I think that's fine, if that's okay with everybody else. I'm seeing nods. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
15.1.
So this is an amendment to the contract. Oh,
Missed looking for public comment on that last item. Is that correct? Edith, is that what you wanted to comment on though?
No, it's on this item.
It's on this item?
Yes, on the Worksite Labs.
Okay, go ahead.
In reading through, I was pleased to see the dedication of 5 employees, Worksite Labs employees, towards contact tracing. But in conversation with some of our members who have been closely involved in the contact tracing work done so far, there is concern that the protocols that we have been using this year and the training that the individuals at Worksite Labs have are not aligning, and some of the information that have been provided by the contact tracers needed to be essentially redone. So I'm hopeful that in addition to the provision of that 5 FTE, that there is going to be some training so that this expense in outsourcing that work actually does free up the time of our employees to do, their normal jobs, and they won't have to be double checking the work or pressed into service to do the contact tracing work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
hello again. So yes, what Edith presented is just a great segue into this contract. Ideally, what we're hoping to do is to, we mentioned in the resolution that we were going to briefly pause contact tracing while we brought it back under the guidance of Cal OSHA, which is now updated. Instead of looking at 6 feet, we're looking at shared airspace. And so we do need to do retraining on what that contact tracing looks like. We're no longer looking necessarily at seating charts, we're looking at whole classrooms. And so who we contact with a close contact notice would be more expansive, because more students are considered close contact when you look at airspace. And so with that, we would like to amend our contract with Worksite Labs, because what they're going to be taking on is previously what our health team was working on. They were doing all the internal contact tracing, looking at seating charts, finding who was sitting within 6 feet of whom in order to get this information out to the community. What we're asking Worksite Labs is to take this work on for us, and to take over all of the contact tracing under the new Cal OSHA guidance. And so with that, in order to be able to provide that for our district, they are going to hire additional staff, which is at an additional cost to us. And that's why we have this written in this amended contract. And what that additional staff will do is increase the work they're doing with the telemedical services, with the post-isolation antigen training, with the increased testing for staff and students, and also with the new Cal OSHA guidance around airspace contact tracing. And so they are significantly increasing their services, they're upping their staff and their training, so that they can be in alignment with what our district needs in this time. And that's what this amendment is.
Thank you. Questions? No?
Just a quick comment. I mean, for me, this is basically a demonstration of the intention to implement what we put into the resolution last time, that we are identifying areas where burden has been placed on our educational staff to behave as health experts, and we are contracting out for health expertise to actually do that work. And that is bringing more educational focus into the classroom and more health expertise into our safety environment, both of which are critical.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I see there's a public comment, but any other board comments? No? Okay. Abby Corman.
Hi, thank you so much. I so appreciate having worksite labs. It's so easy. Everyone is so friendly. And I have luckily been able to test negative so far every time. So thank you. I was present at a recent board meeting where it was approved to have a new COVID project manager, which I was excited about because, as stated, I heard how much time it takes for this contact tracing. And so I was under the assumption that would be that person's role. And I'm hearing now this is our new expanded contract with Worksite Labs. So it'd just be helpful to hear kind of the delineation of roles where there's overlap and where there's not. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Would you like me to respond to that now?
Would the board like that question to be answered?
Yeah, definitely. So the delineation is that the work of Worksite Labs specifically is for contact tracing, telemedical appointments, testing, and everything that I mentioned that's part of the amendment to this contract. The work of the COVID project manager is essentially the work that Javier has been doing, which is a bridge between with all district communications with Worksite Labs. In fact, if we had that COVID project manager, they'd probably be the one doing this presentation right now. It's everything that's outward facing from the district. It's assessing the needs of the district, getting that coordinated with Worksite Labs, doing board presentations, collecting our data, putting that in board reports. Everything else that comes that's not necessarily on the shoulders of what Worksite Labs does with the testing and the science and the health specifically. It's more about our district internal processes, needs, feedback, and communication, and constant bridging between our work and the work of Worksite Labs. And it's big, you know, it's answering a lot of parent questions as well, and staff questions, working closely with human resources, working closely with student services. It's the go-between for all things COVID in our district.
Thank you for that. Another public comment from Marie Andre Roy. That might have been an accidental hand raise. Okay. Anything else from the board? Can I have a motion to approve this item?
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Oh, I guess I should be paying attention to him too. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 15.2, adoption of resolution number 1703 in support of Assembly Bill number 75, Kindergarten through Community Colleges Public Education Facilities Bond Act of 2022.
Yes, good evening. Tonight I ask for the board's support in passing this resolution to support a state bond to be put on the November 22 ballot. Our district in the past has benefited significantly from a state bond. We have received for previous construction projects that we have done just over 107 million. We currently have around 9 million in waiting projects for funding, which if the passage of a state bond would occur, we would receive that funding, as well as any construction projects that we may have around CTE. So if we were to build culinary arts, or as we embark in our own exploration of putting a bond on the November ballot, some of our projects, especially around the CTE, would marry very nicely with a state bond as well. So they appear every few years. Again, our district has benefited greatly from the state bond, and I would like you to consider to support another state bond for the November ballot.
Okay. Alan?
Yeah, from my experience, the state has basically provided rules for school districts to apply for funding from the state bonds, essentially as reimbursement for work that was done according to some rigorous state quality guidelines and grant approval guidelines. And that historically the Sequoia district has been very, very effective at complying with those guidelines and applying for that funding and winning those grants. But that what we have seen over the past several years is that existing state bonds had run out and the state had built up a substantial backlog of awards that had been earned by districts such as Sequoia, but the funding was delayed until the next state bond could be passed. So from my understanding, this is basically the state committing to, or putting out to the voters the opportunity to catch up on the commitments that have already been made and the funding that this district has already earned and future funding we would anticipate earning with our continued good track record of meeting those grant guidelines. Is that a pretty accurate understanding of all of that?
I would say yes. I would say, unfortunately, we don't meet the criteria that we had met previously for us in order to receive those large matching dollars with some of our projects. But there still is, again, availability for us to be paid for our projects that have already been approved and put on a funded list. They have this ginormous funded list, but no funds to pay for said projects. And then also for CTE opportunities that our district may have. Those are really our remaining qualifiers. We have about a little less than 2 million across 2 sites left in modernization money as a qualifier. But due to potential declining enrollment, we don't meet the enrollment requirement that we had previously met. And that comes up from our feeders. So that's not just looking at us, right? That's looking basically at us and then our feeders, also including any corresponding charter as well.
I think, Richard, you want to? Okay.
So I don't know if I heard you right, Alan, so I don't know if I'm asking the same question, but I know a lot of, I know that there are lots of partner schools, including us, who are trying to consider whether or not we want to do a bond. Would that impact this process, Crystal?
So unfortunately, most districts in our area, and I have not seen this data, so this is it's a speculation from understanding kind of where we are and where our partner districts are. We aren't any longer in an area that would benefit as greatly as we have in the past for a state bond. So you can have a need, but like this one is buildings over 75 years. right? And you're building a new school. So there are certain qualifiers for our partner districts, obviously, that they would be able to explore with the state to see if they can receive any state matching funds.
Thank you.
I have a few kind of areas I'm just curious to get thoughts from my colleagues on this. Firstly, I support schools. I think funding for schools is great. Funding for school buildings is great. I feel like I was elected to govern the Sequoia High School District. This is an issue that's going to go before the voters. And I'm sort of struggling with what's my role to tell the people who elected me how they should vote about something else. I'm sort of struggling with that a little bit. In this, you've mentioned our success, Alan, in the past. Sounds like potentially in the future, we may be projecting varying possible amounts, possibly a lot less than in the past. But this particular one, I don't know that we should so much cherry pick based on what are we going to get, but maybe think more broadly. But I don't know if we should think about how much will the voters of our district pay and how much will our district expect to receive, if that's relevant in our analysis of this. I believe it's a GO bond coming out of income taxes and looking at the amount of income taxes that our taxpayers will have to pay versus the 9 million that we'll get. If we care about that or don't care about that, I'm sort of struggling with that a little bit. And then third, we are in the process and we have action items coming up for us to consider our own bond. And are we sending some kind of message of any kind by taking any kind of position on yet another bond that's going to be on potentially the same ballot? So I sort of struggle with all three of those things. I do support schools and I want to support schools, but I just don't know where the role is for us in our governing of this school district to tell our voters or whoever this resolution is for. I'm sort of struggling with this a little bit. I'm curious if any of you have any responses to any of those things.
A tag along, if we don't do this, will we still get the bond money? Like, how does that work out, Crystal? In addition to what Rich is saying?
Yes, we would still, if a state bond is passed, regardless of our position, we would still receive the funding.
I would throw in, I think part of what I stated earlier, that I know I've been a process of expending funds from two bonds, and that a large amount of the work that we've done always has carefully qualified for various levels of matching grants out of the state bond funds. And as Leach indicated, we have made the funded list for a fair amount of currently outstanding work. Yeah, that this is basically the next available mechanism for the state to meet those obligations. And so my sense has very much been that it's in the appropriate interest of the district to support the state in getting those bonds funded so that the state can meet that obligation to our district. So although the trade-off of future awards may not be as strongly in the benefit of our district as many others, I do think it's appropriate for us as stewards of our educational finances to actively support the passage of state school bond funding.
Our colleague Chris Thompson has a question or comment.
I think our colleague Rich Ginn raised important questions about how we vote on this resolution. I tend to come out in agreement with Mr. Sarver in saying it is both in our direct interest for the district, though not as strongly in the past, but I also think it's appropriate. We have an interest in the state of education in the state of California, and ultimately its impact on what our citizenry looks like and the health of the economy. And so, and also a recognition that currently our infrastructure of schools is not what it should be. And so for those reasons, I'll support the resolution.
I think Rich, you do though make some good points. I like the point that it's really up to the voters to decide, right? I like some of the points that he has raised, that it really is up to the voters. This could potentially help some of our feeder school districts, but are you thinking of voting against it, or you still back and forth? Yeah. You bring up some good points that caused me some pause.
Chris, can you restate your reasons behind your vote again? I just didn't hear everything.
Well, first, I think I want to respond to something our president said. It is up to the voters to decide on this. So we're not taking anything away from that. It is the voters in the state of California will vote on this, and they'll be given that opportunity as they should. I think the question here is a resolution. Do we have insight either way that should affect how that vote would be made? And I guess the insight I have is that one, when you look across the state, the infrastructure of our schools is not up to what it should be. And it will have a better chance of improving that infrastructure with this bond money from the state. And two, ultimately in supporting education, it is good for both the citizenry of our state and the economy. Does that respond to your question, Trustee Stevenson?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Where do you stand on this, Shawnice? Do you know?
Got too much going on. I guess for me, I don't understand all of this, but I am for kids, and I'm not just for us. I'm also for our neighbors who it could help, some of our partnering districts. I think Crystal said it didn't really impact us as much for if our neighboring partners or us decide to go for a bond. I'm wondering of the optics of not doing this and what it means to our neighbors and others. And so I don't want to jeopardize that because we're working really hard for a lot of different things around our community partners and our communication with our political partners. And so I'm leaning towards a yes, and making it easier for all of us, because we just can't look out for ourselves and who voted for us and all that, but also looking at the broader community. And I think this is one of those things. But I'm happy to know that we would get the money even if we didn't have it. But I'm just saying what the resolution really means for communication to our community and our partners and our political folks who are really trying to raise money for education. This is the time to do it, to really get education on the docket so that we can get better funding that our students in our communities desperately need. So that's where I land. Did you get that, Rich? Yes. I should have just said yes. Thank you. Long-winded.
But this is an example of a really good, discussion where we don't come into a board meeting with our minds made up, listen to each other and listen to all the views.
Well, so I heard 3 clear yeses, so I'm willing to move to approve this resolution.
Say that again.
I move to approve the resolution.
Okay.
And I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Need a roll call, right? Yes. Well, doesn't hurt to know twice how we want to vote.
Student trustee Stitt?
Yes.
Student trustee Osuna?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Stevenson?
Yes.
Trustee Sarver?
Yes.
Vice President Ginn?
Yes.
President Dubois?
Yes.
Motion adopted, 5-0.
Thank you. Okay. Now we are on item 15.3, approval of agreement with TBWBH for pre-election planning and Communication Services.
Yes, thank you. So these next few contracts or agreements that are before you are for us and for the excitement that we may be putting a bond for our district on the November 22 ballot. And so this was done as a competitive process for the 3 agreements that are before you. The deciding factors were definitely references and highly based around fee schedule for these types of services. So for the first one, for 15.3, the Director of Purchasing had released a request for proposal. So for these type of agreements, it's not a bid. It's more of a proposal with a scope and requested back to us, but it's formal. There's no advertisement. We send to as many vendors as we can locate and that we've worked with before. I believe we sent to, I want to say, 3 vendors related to this specific service. Of those 3, we received 2 proposals, and staff is recommending that we move forward for the pre-election planning and communication services with TBWBH.
Thank you. Questions? No?
I'm happy to support. I don't know if there's any questions.
You have a question?
I think my comment would be, this would be the 4th contract I'm aware of. I would have been associated with TBWBH. The previous 2 are the last 2 successful bond measures in this district and the first successful parcel tax in the Belmont Redwood Shores School District. And I have found them to be excellent partners in an election issue.
Chris?
Crystal, I don't know whether you addressed this in updates, but I'm curious about whether the not to exceed figure is now in the contracts.
It will be. We will have that revision. So for this, so the other 2 are a little harder to put an actual cap around pricing, but for the election, the pre-election planning and communication services, it's actually structured as a retainer, I believe, for like $6,800 a month. So that would go between the approval of the contract. If the board chooses to approve tonight, we would start that contract on Monday. And then that would run through November if the board chooses to put a measure on the ballot, or it would stop if we chose not to in August.
But you'll actually enter a figure.
Yes.
Once you have that. So even
yes,
though we're
absolutely. Approving
it based upon the figures we see in the attachment to the proposal.
The fee structure, correct. Because there are some add-ons as well, but as far as the monthly retainer goes for those services, how we choose to handle the campaign and any surveying, those are add-ons at a later time.
Now, one other question, one final question I have is, did they give a sense of the optimal number of months needed to get ready for a campaign? There, as you said, they're billing us like a retainer once a month, regardless of the amount of work we're doing. Do we know whether this is the right amount of time?
Well, we definitely don't want to wait any longer. I have received a couple schedules from them when we had been potentially looking at 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen. And then when we started talking about the November 22 ballot, you know, really mapping that out, I believe when we did our study session in February, or no, that was September, I'm sorry, September, that at that time I had a schedule from them that included starting in November. So we definitely don't want to wait any longer. From previous bonds that I have worked on, including with TBWBH, boards have approved these contracts no later than February for November ballot.
And if the board will allow me to ask one additional question, and that goes to the mailers. Interestingly, the last time we worked with them and they brought a proposal before us, we asked, why is it so much of the advertisement or the promotion is done through US mail rather than electronic methods? It seemed old-fashioned at the time, and even more so now. Any wisdom on that? The other thing I guess I'd caution is that those campaigns are pretty expensive. You see, they're estimated at about $50,000 per campaign. That's based upon mailing to everybody every voter in the district, of which there are 17,000 who've never voted in the last 4 years, another 13,000 that haven't voted have only voted at the presidential election. So I hope we'll do some tailoring on that to save the district money.
I think there is absolutely room for tailoring. I can tell you, as much as we have advanced and you sign up for paperless statements and mail is kind of the thing of the past, just as some individuals still have landlines in their home, mostly our seniors in our areas still like to receive those colorful mailers. And so it's really around striking that balance. And that's all a part of the strategy through the campaign as well. So I definitely think that there is room for actual mailers to the degree of what we may have done previously. Possibly not as much. Definitely something that we need to explore, and also talk with, when we do get geared up and the campaign starts going, and we talk to our campaign chair and other folks that are donating their time, and just with our stakeholders.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Nope. Can I have a motion?
I move approval of the contract.
I second that emotion.
Thank you.
Did I say emotion?
All in
I
favor?
second motion. Sorry, I think that was a song.
Aye.
Sorry.
He goes, what?
Oh,
emotion.
That's a song. Sorry.
Like emoji.
It's lost in emotion, Shawnee's.
Okay. I think we've been here too long, right? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for watching him. I don't see his hand anymore. Okay. All right, motion passes. Moving on to item 15.4, approval of agreement with ISOM?
Yeah, ISOM.
ISOM advisors for general obligation bond financial advisory services.
Yes, so this is the second of the third regarding consultants related to exploring a potential bond for November. This one, we had several RFPs sent out. I want to say there was around 11. It was extremely competitive. We received 6 proposals back to the district, and staff is recommending agreement with ISOM. So, and this is just directed to our general bond obligation cell. Again, based off of fee structure. We don't know how many bonds we are going to sell, how quickly we will sell them, the numbers of series that we will have. And so securing them as a consultant up front allows us to partner through this planning and examining to put a bond on the ballot. And then their work and their fees really start once we sell our first series of bonds and start actually with the construction and the heavy design phases.
I move approval for the contract.
And I second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Now I see Chris's hand. I saw his hand. All right, motion passes. Thank you. Item 15.5, approval of agreement with Dennis Wolver Kelly for general obligation bond legal counsel.
Yes, again, a competitive process based off of a free fee structure. Our district does work with DWK in other areas. This would be a new area for us to work with them on related to bond counsel. And so again, they are there for consults. So how that journey works with us is between now and election, they are there for consults. They help formulate how the ballot has to be written. There's specifics, languages that we actually have to use when we put something on the ballot. So they're in the advisory role. What happens after the bond is passed, again, they have involvement every time we sell a series of bonds and or we refinance. And so they will be our partner with that moving forward. I have had several successful bonds with this firm when I was down south and then also up north. So it's an exciting partnership for the district.
Thank you.
I'll move approval of the contract.
Okay.
I'll second again.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Chris is an aye. All in favor? Thanks. Okay, did we plow through this agenda or what? Is it the agenda or is it me? I think it's the agenda. I think it's the agenda. Okay. Now it's time for Board of Trustees and Superintendent's comments, committee reports, agenda setting, anything else you would like to say to wrap up our meeting? I think you do it all at one time, if you don't mind. Yep.
I wanted to kind of give an update, and Trustee Thompson can also help as well. We had our 2x2x2 with the city, about to say the city of Ravenswood. I'm so tired, y'all. With Ravenswood City School District, City Council, and us. And it was 2 people from the school district, 2 folks from the city council, and then ourselves and our superintendent. We hadn't had a meeting, I don't know in how long. I know it's been at least a year because I've been here a year, but it might have been longer than that. It was such a refreshing meeting for myself. I just wanted to jump out of my seat because I was so excited that we were able to get in one room and have a conversation. A lot of it was about what was up at top of mind. I'm sure you guys can think of that. You can guess. COVID. So people were really talking about the impacts on schools. And what came out of that is a conversation to really, Chris and I were able to go to City Council as a recommendation to be able to share our resolution with them and encourage them to do a public health campaign with some of our families, make sure we get the mask, not only to the kids, we're responsible for the kids, but we're thinking about the families because we have multi-generational housing, we have multi-family housing. So it's very easy transferable in our community. We love the way that we live, but on this end, it's causing some concern for families. And so we went to them and kind of shared that, and Chris and I shared the mic, and they were very appreciative of us being there. And we just really thank them for taking care of the community, having all the sites for testing and vaccination. And also thank you to our reopen community, our doctors who are also parents in our community that really supported Belhaven and Menlo and City of East Palo Alto to really advocate to get the testing and the vaccination in our community, which was a desert, which is why we had so much concern with coming back to school last year. So wanted to make sure that they knew that. Chris, did you have anything to say about that before I move on?
You know, I would just underscore the tone of collaboration and productivity was really, it was exciting and nice to hear. The 2 specific things I'll add are we used the resolution as a way of talking, particularly the city council. It was very effective for us to list off the things we're doing and then the areas of need. So one wanted to know the resolution we passed was helpful there. The only thing I missed in the 2x2x2 because we ran out of time was a conversation with Ravenswood. I think most of the conversation was city to the high school district.
Yeah.
And so I am looking forward to more time where we can be in communication, in exchange with Ravenswood.
Yeah, which is why they want another meeting next month. We actually, I mean, there's so much talent in each one of our city, our systems of care. So a couple of people, if I want to be just clear, one of the board members at Ravenswood School District is a college, high school college counselor. So she's talking about going to college and what does that look like? What does transition look like? What do they need to do in 8th and 7th grade? And so there is going to be some fruitful conversations that came out of that. And our city council, even though it was more city because we started talking about COVID, they're like all about the kids. So there's some strong support there for kids. So that was wanted to give you guys an update on that. And then I want to let you all know, I think last time I dropped the ball and didn't talk to any of my people on my list about the potential of a bond, and I got back on task and had meetings with the contacts I have for City of Redwood City Council, Menlo Park School District, and City of Menlo Park, and City of East Palo Alto. And all of them were just very generally supportive of kids. And so I think that was really telling for me, and they appreciate it. One of the things that someone said, you didn't even have to reach out to us, but you did. And so that, to me, that tells me that that's a really good way to build relationship. What came out of those were like 3 highlights. How about housing? Let's think big. That was one of the comments that came out of that because of the teacher shortage also in other areas, or staff shortage. The next thing that was talked about was, how do we make sure that whatever we're doing is going to actually impact the students' outcomes in the classroom? That was really important to someone. And then the other piece is going beyond the bond to have community engagement. And so that was telling for me that people are thirsting to really be a part of our community. So those were the 3 things. And then the last 2 things I have, Job Train has connected with me. I'm going to have an economic mobility center. If you guys know where Ravenswood Health Clinic is, they have the land on the back end. And so it's going to be a big facility. It's going to be a little bit different than their traditional Job Train. Everything's going to go over there, and they're looking for partnership and comments and stuff like that. So I've directed them to you, Dr. Williams. They also want to place people in our district if we need help. So they also want to talk to our HR. It's like a whole big old thing. So I've asked them to call you. And then the last thing, I would love to see if we could take a vote to really get board evaluation on our agenda. I know we talked about it before, and I don't know where it is on the list, but I feel like it's time for us to get feedback so that we can, especially as we have a new superintendent, to really align ourselves, to really understand how we're working. So we're doing this parallel process of evaluation for her, but also evaluation for us.
It's just a question. I've heard you say something similar to that before. Do you envision that being an open session discussion? Do you envision it being some sort of process with a facilitator that we do some other way? Like, what's your vision of what that is?
I went to CSBA conference. So that's where all my ideas come from. So it might not be everyone else's, but they have an outside facilitator come in. We could do the parameters of what the evaluation looks like. They do have a tool. We could say how broad or how narrow we want it to be. And then we have an open discussion about what we learned about ourselves. And kind of what I would hope is not just say, oh, we did this and we did that, and this is where we need to improve, but then create some action plans to say, how do we want to be better, right? And what do those steps look like? So that blank, thank you, Abby, that blank area, community relations, if it comes up, maybe we define that a little bit more. Maybe we say, okay, this is how we're going to behave differently, because maybe that wasn't our intention on interacting with folks, but maybe we need to shift how we do things. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, good idea. We can add this to agenda.
Follow up. Are you looking at like a half hour during a board meeting or a whole day, or like what's your vision, just so we can know what?
have to get, that's why I wanted on the agenda to have.
We'll have
the
to talk about it
discussion.
more. I think it would be a retreat, and we do need to talk about what we would want in our next retreat. And what I see it more as a communication training, but we can talk, we can have.
Yeah, I don't
Put it on
actually.
the
I guess how
agenda
about
and
this?
talk more about
What
it.
I'm asking for, I didn't mean to go into all this discussion, is
Yeah.
can we get it on the agenda?
Yep.
To
And then we
talk about it is what I
'cause We
want.
shouldn't talk about it.
It'll
now.
be a discussion item of
Discussion
doing
item.
an evaluation of ourselves at some point in the
Yeah.
future. If so,
And
how?
also we want that to be,
Just evaluation and how we might do it going forward.
yeah, and we have done it in the past, by the way. We have,
haven't, or
no, we
have?
have. We have done board evaluation, right? Yep. It
Well, I'll
was
say if you
part of
need,
what we
if
did.
I support having a
Different than what you're
discussion
thinking.
item.
Yeah.
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 Alan, do you also
And
support?
in the meantime, I can work with Dr. Williams to get the exact information from CSBA so that you guys can see it.
I think that would be great to bring in that agenda item, which I support having.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other board comments, Alan?
Yeah, there's, I guess, 2 or 3 meetings that I've been involved in, a couple of them with you, Carrie. One is the student-run sustainability committee, which has been meeting monthly and is quite energetic and is exceptionally interested in making change in the district and in the world. And they had a number of items that came up in the last one. They are very interested in sustainability as a cornerstone of any work we do as part of an upcoming bond. And they're very interested in having participation in our facilities planning efforts across the district as we define the bond. A second thing and a highlight that came out of the meeting was asking teachers to be involved in professional development around including sustainability in the curriculum, very much across the district. And that really was an embodiment of their plea that the district focus on viewing things through a sustainability and environmental lens, recognizing the existential crisis that we are in with the advancement of global warming, and looking at the kinds of perspective that the district has been placing on equity, for example, as the lens through which we view everything, that environmental awareness really should be at a similar place of focus for the district. And I wanted to share that and state that I'm very supportive of those objectives. The second one that we were both in, and Carrie, maybe I'll leave you a little bit to talk about, is the digital well-being task force, where we broke out into different breakout sessions to really talk about topics, and I had to cut out early. But Jack West has been leading an absolutely phenomenal effort there, bringing so much energy, and is developing a countywide curriculum for digital well-being. And the first several sections that have been developed and put up on their website are really involved in student self-awareness and self-protection within the digital realm. And now the energy is being turned to actually using the digital tool sets for educational advancement more thoroughly. And a lot of great continuing work going on there. And then the third set of meetings I've been attending fairly regularly, monthly meetings of the Redwood City Together Safe Routes to School team. And there, the thing I wanted to bring back was that I know there was a meeting late last week where Samtrans presented their services for schools for the coming year and partnership opportunities. And I do know that our district was well represented at that. And a key point to all of that is that Samtrans is now piloting the availability of free bus passes for students that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And I know that the district has put in place the memoranda of understanding with Samtrans to be fully engaged in that, and that the ability to distribute those bus passes has gone out to the sites. But I would be interested in some sort of a presentation of exactly what is going on across the district with that, and everything we can do to really promote awareness of that and maximize student participation. I think it's critical for the well-being of our students and for the well-being of the planet that Sequoia be an absolute leader in the huge uptake of that opportunity, and that we get more students on public transit to our schools and more limited passenger occupancy cars off of the streets around our schools.
Thank you for that. Rich is being modest. He's also out there in the community a lot. He was at the Redwood City Together meeting today. I can't remember everything that you've done. So thanks to all of you for, it's a lot of work being a board member, but you guys do much more than expected by attending so many community meetings. So with that, are there any other comments from anybody? With that, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I second that, and I commend the early completion of this board meeting. Well done.
Well done. I don't think it was me. Everyone's happy. The staff is so happy. Good night, everyone.